Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden, the guy right across me. His name is Tim, and this is The Second Legacy, and thank you for stopping by. Oh, do we have a treat for you guys today? Brothers and sisters, we are going to talk about which departments in the Department of Justice actually knew about the whole gun running thing to Mexico, the trafficking across our nation, of which they then used to blame on us and then curtail our freedoms. Yeah, we're going to break into that because it turns out that CBS had a random chance of journalism that popped in, and you guys are going to love every second. Now, of course, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and with that, Tim, we got a lot of work to do today, but how are you doing?
Doing good. It is officially hump day, so
it is.
Halfway through the week.
That's right. I used to love that commercial. That I think it was an insurance commercial, Hump Day. I used to love that commercial. I don't know why, but I just did. Yeah. Well, some little announcement here, people. We have given Dr. Button Pusher the ability to make all sorts of contributions to the video today. So if you start to hear random little zingers, that's just his personality coming out through Button. So with that said, fair warning, it's going to be amazing. I'm excited. Let's get into this, Tim. What do you think? Just jump right in? Yeah. You think we just go into it?
Let's just jump in. Both feet.
Both feet. Thanks for saying both feet. All right. So now let's start this off because we got to figure out what organizations within the Department of Justice are actually aware of what's going on here. Because remember, we're being sued from Mexico, the gun manufacturers. Everything's our fault, right? Well, let's just hit number one, Dr. Button Pusher.
From coast to coast, from north to south, and that they were funneling thousands of guns into Mexico to fuel the drug war. I asked him, I said, who's doing something about this? And he said, nobody. I was like, holy crap. Are you serious? He's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, who knows about this? He's like, I've told everybody. I go, CIA? He goes, yeah. I go, FBI? I go, yeah. I go, DEA? I go, yeah. They all tell me it's a gun problem. That would fall with ATF.
So they're pouring weapons into Mexico to fund a drug war, to fuel the drug war. And it's a gun problem.
Well, it's definitely. I mean, obviously, it's not like it's a trafficking issue, which I believe would be under the FBI. It's not a criminal organization, which would be the FBI. It's not drug related, which would be the DEA. It's not outside of our national borders, which would be the CIA. No. We're gonna push that off. We're gonna go over here. It's the ATF's. It's the ATF's thing.
And stuff like this doesn't happen without direction from above. So these groups don't generally act on their own. They generally act under orders, direction.
Like with directors, like the directors that we always see in front of Congress. Yeah, that's true, Tim. And the thing that the thing that really cooked my bacon on this one, let's just say that, cooked my bacon, burnt it. We know for a fact that what he's talking about to prevent this trafficking is done by criminals. Mm-hmm. By the way, this is not everyday American citizens. These are smugglers. This is a network. This is an organized crime network. We know for a fact that it was being tracked by the ATF through something called Project Thor. Okay, we've talked about it a bunch. The ATF, those funds were reallocated, Tim, away from Project Thor to something else. And wouldn't you know it, at the exact same time the Biden administration came into power and all the new executive rules, which we've been dealing with for the past 2.5 years, I'm sure all those things are just coincidences.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they were just asleep at the wheel. They weren't just letting this happen for political gain. No, that would almost be a scandal. Theory. And this is a scandal-free administration, kind of like the Obama administration. Not one scandal.
That's true. Not one. Not a single one.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it just slipped under the radar. That's all it was. Of the FBI, DEA, NSA.
A pre-organization.
DOJ, DEA, DIA. Just go down the alphabet list,
All of it.
They're like, that's ATF doing that one. And it's a gun problem. They assure us. So.
Yeah, they assure us we're good. So, but it would be really handy if you were on the gun control side, if you were to say, you know what, it would, I'm not saying they did this. This is just all conjecture, of course. It would be really helpful to have a bigger exacerbated problem that you were doing nothing about intentionally. Therefore, you have more of a reason to say, look at all these terrible stats and numbers and all these talking points that we can therefore curtail more gun rights from American citizens. Mm-hmm. Now, it would be handy if I were to war game this out, Tim.
Yeah. We'll just kind of let this one happen, and then when the fallout happens, we'll just blame the guns, and we can fix it through through legislation, and we'll just take the guns away, and all of a sudden the problem will be fixed.
Nailed it. Nailed it. And look, Tim, look. This works out so well because when all these guns are running across the border, by the way, forget the porous border aspect of this, which is a glaring part of it. Mm-hmm. But when all of these guns run across the border, it turns out that the government of Mexico is going to sue the gun manufacturers. So ipso facto, you get on one side pressure on the gun manufacturers through the litigious nature of our government. And then on the other side, you get to politically use the expediency of crime, which you're doing nothing about, to further curtail gun rights. That's a win-win if you're a gun controller.
Yeah. I mean, and you got Mexico on board to sue American companies. I mean, they're just getting attacked from all angles. And that's the goal in all this, right? That is to bankrupt the companies and put them out of business. What they can't achieve legislatively, they're going to achieve via dirty tricks. Dirty trick is what we're talking about in today's video. They do these things to try to, and Braden and I go back and forth on this many times. You'll see us do it here on Second Legacy, where I'll say, this is totally by design. They're doing this on purpose. They're letting people die. And some people would even go so far as to say they're causing people to die. But I think it's just talking about today's story. It is clearly apparent they're letting it happen. And if not fueling it, at a minimum, they're letting it happen, all of which, in my mind, would be criminal and would be justification for potentially impeachment or removal from office. Because when you're doing things like this, costing lives and driving up the costs of everything else, getting American companies sued, all this stuff because of your negligence, that's pretty serious.
Right. And wouldn't you know it, Tim, just to draw a few more lines together, because those are very valid points. I think this is a scandal that's brewing under the surface, and it's just waiting for someone to crack open a rock, and the skeleton and bugs are just going to go everywhere.
Probably like after Biden's out of office and has passed of old age, and then it'll come up in an expose 20 years from now.
There's going to be some sort of declassified document, which is like, oh my God.
Right. It's like, well, if we'd only known.
If only we'd known. Yeah, if only we'd watched the Second Legacy. Yeah, legitimately, man. If you talk about all the things that we just laid out, and then you tie further strings together about the people who are running the lawsuit into the United States, they are an extension of Everytown for Gun Safety, starting a new international fund out of Mexico to sue national companies. And that exact same corporation, Everytown for Gun Safety, has now people inside the office of White House, or the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. These strings are directly tied to the Biden administration through Everytown for Gun Safety, multiple different ways.
Yeah, and if it's going through this new, committee that the White House set up and Davey Hogg is taking credit for, that means blood is on Davey Hogg's hands too. Oh, Davey.
Oh, Davey. Man, he's such a peach. But you know what? I think that was a really good setup for what we're talking about. Would you say, Tim? I think that was pretty good. Everybody knew about it. No one wanted to talk about it.
Yep.
Well, let's see what's actually happening here from one of the actual smugglers from inside CBS. And this is before we get to Goofy Things Gun Grabbers Say segment. So let's go to number 2, Dr. Buttonpusher.
Mexico has incredibly strict gun laws, making it next to impossible for civilians to buy firearms. Only one gun store exists for the entire country, and it's on a military base. To get firearms, criminals have to smuggle them in.
Oh, wow. Just pulled out a 9mm wrapped in plastic out of the gas tank. It's got this AR-15 that was hidden in this rear seat. He can hide guns in the door panels, in the tires. The smuggler said that he can hide upwards of 30 plus guns at any given time in a small sedan like this, effectively a mule for these weapons going into Mexico.
These weapons going.
Where do you even want to start? Where do you even want to start on that, Tim? The smuggling aspect that looks very familiar, or the fact that gun control is the most extreme and CBS is calling it out? Where do you want to go first?
You go ahead and steer this one. I mean, they're both good. They're both good. I got to pick last time.
They're both good. Oh, that's true. So the thing that stood out to me the most on this is and this happens all the time, people, the Second Legacy, in the effort to set up the point for gun control, they always disprove gun control first. They have to. Like every single time. Right. This guy just led this entire segment off to make an impact point to say that Mexico has the most stringent gun laws out there. One gun store. And it's on a military base. And I'm sitting here listening to this going, waiting for the point where gun control works.
Right. And then look at all these guns flowing across the border into this country with strict gun laws. Exactly. They're trying to focus. They're trying to shift the focus to the guns coming across the border, right. But inadvertently, they destroyed their own arguments for gun control.
Correct. And that's the thing. Make no mistake, this is very damning, but there's still an intent to this. The intent is, look how scary guns are from the United States. Look how bad they are. Look what you're doing. Like, the entire point is emphasizing guns are the problem, not the people in the smuggling networks and the rings and the cartels. Because the stuff that they just showed you, it's the exact same way other stuff is coming across the border.
Mm-hmm.
You come
It's
across
a two-way
the
street
border
down there, folks.
and you go this way. Like it's not new information.
Right. And they very well could be paying for these guns with drugs, which wind up on the streets of American cities. Yeah.
You stop it. They would never, Tim.
No,
They're
that would
such
be
wholesome
illegal.
people.
What am I thinking?
Yes.
People don't break laws.
Exactly.
Laws work.
Exactly. Because after all, Tim, the guns are fueling the drug crisis, not the other way around.
I got to keep that.
That's it.
Top of mind.
You do. Top of mind. You got to.
Yeah.
You have to. We need
a Venn diagram.
You know what they should do? We do either a Venn diagram or we need someone to tell them not to do something.
I love Venn diagrams. Okay.
There we go. Thank you, Dr. Button Pusher.
Thank you, Doctor. We had to coax him out. He wasn't in there yet. All right. All right. So now, let's see. You know what? I'm getting all amped. Maybe, Tim, I think this is an important sarcasm setup. Maybe these are just wholesome farmers who just need to make a living because the corporations are keeping the man down. And really, there's no other alternatives. And if they had better economic opportunities, they wouldn't do this. Maybe that's it. And maybe they're really scared and they don't want to break laws.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not it. Let's hit number 3.
How much do you make when you do this?
$5,000.
$5,000 for one crossing.
Muy fácil. Estados Unidos. Muy fácil de comprar.
Very easy to get these arms in America. Are you a U.S. citizen or a Mexican citizen? Both. The U.S. announced recently that it was cracking down on gun trafficking from the U.S. into Mexico. Are you at all afraid of what the U.S. government might do and what kind of an impact that might have on your business?
No.
No, you're not afraid?
No.
So nothing has changed?
Pues, no sé. Normal.
And they just destroyed their own arguments once again.
Right. And again, that's the key, Tim. That setup is it's very easy to get guns in the United States. Yeah, because we have freedoms and we have Second Amendment rights, and that's part of our system. Okay.
Yeah.
This guy, he literally, to your point, proved it wrong.
You know, what's funny is I think this guy went to the Joe Biden School of Journalism.
There was some whispering.
$5,000 from one crossing? It's like they have the dark scene. They film this at night, as if they're behind enemy lines and there's cartels on all sides of them. And you got to be super quiet and sneaky. So tell us more about this. It's so funny. It's just all this manufactured, emotion and stuff that they're trying to stick in this piece, ultimately pushing for gun control, but inadvertently destroying their own arguments over and over and over again. Not just once, folks, but every time they put another segment in. You think they would look at this and go, ooh, this doesn't really help our cause. Let's go ahead and edit this part out. But apparently, I have to applaud them and I have to thank them for being morons because that makes our job that much easier in defeating them.
That's true. Because it's true.
See?
It's true.
Thank you, Dr. Button Pusher. It is Gavin Newsom. It's true because it's true. That's so gold. Legitimately true. So the thing that stood out to me on this, Tim, and I think this is an important piece, when you're talking about laws, and you're talking about penalties, and you're talking about infringing upon rights, the idea that gun controllers are putting forward is these gun laws will stop this because of this penalty, because we're getting guns off these streets. What they're failing to realize, and this is a very key point to this, and I'd love to get your bounce back on this. They're failing to realize that all they are doing in this is they are infringing upon everyday citizens with gun rights, but the criminals, they're literally driving their price up because the economic disadvantage to getting caught is worth X amount. There's a risk reward model that people are making in their brains, which is the exact same thing that criminals do. They go, well, I'm going to go to jail for life on this, but if I get away with it, I'm going to get $50,000.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to get $5,000 in a day if I can roll the dice and get away with this. It's economics is going to rule out every time. This guy just said, yeah, I make $5,000 a day. It's very easy to get guns in the United States. Are you scared about the penalties? No, not at all.
Are you scared of the crackdown and changing laws? No, doesn't affect me.
Not at all.
No, because what it does is it makes his market more valuable.
Exactly.
So when they pass these laws, like Mexico does have very strict gun laws. I've been down there. You can own guns, but shotguns, you can only shoot on sanctioned ranges. There's very few of them, all this stuff. It's very strict, right? But in doing that, they've created a black market. Something like that happened in American history. Apparently, we didn't learn that lesson. What was that called? Oh yeah, prohibition. When you ban something that's commonly made, alcohol is commonly made, firearms are made the world over. Australia has very strict gun laws, but there was a jeweler in Australia that was moonlighting as a gun manufacturer, making open bolt full auto Mac 10s for bike gangs. I mean, what you do is what they're doing is by stripping our rights, they're basically creating a black market. That black market's going to have criminal elements rush in. Crime's going to elevate. Violence is going to elevate to protect turfs, and the guns are going to flow to criminals, not to the law abiding, because they're going to surrender their firearms under the law because they want to be law abiding. They don't want to go to jail. Criminals, on the other hand, will risk jail for profit. And that's what this guy's talking about. So when you go in and ban things, you're just going to create a black market. You're not going to solve the problem. You have to go at the root of the problem to solve the problem. You can't put Band-Aids on side effects of problems. You have to go after the root of the problem. And the gun grabbers always want to put the Band-Aid on. They think,
that's true. And
when they get their reasonable gun restrictions and they get the reasonable safety measures, when they don't work, what do they do next? They don't roll them back. Go, well, it didn't work. We're going to go ahead and undo this. No, they double down. They go, well, we just need to pass this next law. We need to pass the next law. We need to pass the next law, inching their way towards confiscation, which still won't work.
No, it still won't work. But again, just to reiterate this point, beautiful people, stick with us on this one. You've got a whistleblower who worked within the ATF or at least around that area, who's saying every single major entity inside the DOJ knew this was going on. It's a huge, massive problem. In the next segment, you have them talking about how easy it is to smuggle guns into Mexico because the government of Mexico curtails guns so hard and the gun control is so strict, disproving the point. And then you have a risk assessment and a risk reward model for a smuggler.
Yeah. The more they crack down, the more laws they pass, the more expensive the guns get. It fuels the drug trade, fuels the gun trade. And the people that truly win in this scenario are the criminals.
Yep. And who suffers are the actual Americans every day, which is why we're hitting on this so hard. Now, Dr. Button Pusher, could you play the little soundbite of Biden doing math?
$1,400,000,000.
That's about how I feel with all of our gun laws. $1,400,400,000,089 I mean, it doesn't make sense.
We've passed the most comprehensive gun control in 30 years. God. And it's done absolutely nothing, so we got to pass more. It's just, my goodness, these people.
Meanwhile, you're giving these smugglers raises. But I think we've landed this point. It's time to go to gun grabbers.
Oh, my favorite
Silly
segment.
Things Gun Grabbers. It's your segment. This is a Tim original. So take us home.
All right. So let's start off with number 4, Dr. Button Pusher. This is Atheist Girl. And she has to chime in on the whole gun control thing, and reading through some of her comments, it appears that this is a common theme for her. She just loves talking about gun control and apparently phallic symbols. So I love how gun humpers want to argue semantics about their precious phallic symbols. That would be your gun. While simultaneously having no idea how a woman's body works, but wanting to control them nonetheless. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hazard a guess here and say she's probably on the left side of the spectrum. And if I'm not mistaken, it is the left that has a problem identifying what a female is. I can tell you what a girl is. That's real simple. I can do a simple blood test, tell you what a girl is. I can just look at somebody with no clothes on, tell you what a girl is. But hey.
Oh, you chauvinist.
I'm just telling you. Oh. Just telling you. Well, guys, they kind of jump out at you. That little. Anyway, how about this? Y'all figure out where the G-spot is. Oh man, that stung. Figure out where the G-spot is, and I'll call your metal penis the AR-15 instead of an assault rifle. So it looks like AR-15 it is. She's got a sense of humor. So,
oh no, she said assault rifle it is because we couldn't find the G-spot.
Oh yeah,
that
right.
was the point.
So it looks like assault rifle it is. Yes, right. So did I misread that? Yeah, it figures. Anyway.
It figures. It jumps out at you, right?
It jumps out at you.
Yeah, gun humpers.
Gun humpers.
I mean, that's a unique one. I don't know why, but for some reason, 458 SOCOM pops into my head. I don't know why, but that diameter.
What is it with the gun grabbers and phallic symbols? I mean, it's like this common theme. Do they really think that they're getting at us making these stupid comments over and over again? You only own a gun because you have a small penis. It's like, seriously, that's what you got.
Yep.
You don't want to have an actual conversation. This is what you come at me with. Whatever.
I'm going with a 0 gauge. 4 gauge.
All right.
What do we want to do? Little gun jokes? Okay.
Little gun jokes. You gun humper. We need to make that into an audio clip. Gun humpers.
Yeah, we do.
Gun humpers unite. Make t-shirt. All right. So number 5, Dr. Button Pusher, our friends over at K-12 Shooting School Database. Oh, another David runs this particular organization. Not Davey Hogg, different one. So increasing suicide rate matters for preventing school shootings and mass shootings because they are violent acts of public suicide. So what they're saying in kind of a messy manner is that mass shootings, school shootings, whatever you want to identify them as, they're actually just violent acts of public suicide. Now, I love that extra descriptor in there because as if suicide isn't already violent or attacking other people isn't violent, you got to throw that action, anyway. So violent acts of public suicide. So trying to tie suicide into school shootings to keep it relevant to their title of their Twitter account, I guess. So then moving on down, we have 75% of suicides by men over 65 are committed with a gun. So if you're over 65, 75% of you, if you're going to kill yourself, you're going to do it with a gun. Okay. And then half of the suicides, this is all suicides, are with a firearm. And then he sums it all up with gun control equals suicide prevention. Well, I was getting ready to comment myself, but then I am one of the folks that gets to vote on community notes. And so I went in and saw that there was a community note attached to this. And they had already pointed out the point I was going to make. So I just approved the note. It'll take several other people doing that before it shows up.
I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
Dr. Button Pusher and a soundboard doing marvelous things out there. All right. So Dr. Button Pusher number 6. This is the community note that's been proposed. And this is spot on. Japan, having some of the strictest gun laws in the world, has almost double the suicide rates of the United States. Gun ownership does not increase suicide rates. So here's the idiocy of arguing the whole thing of like, well, people use guns to commit suicide. The problem, again, is the suicide is what's causing the suicide. It's not the gun, people. Quit saying it's the gun. If I want to kill myself, it's not because I have a gun laying next to me. I have something else that's eating at me, that's causing me that pain and that distress. I need help. Saying, oh, we're just going to take the gun away and now the problem's solved. No, I'm still having problems, folks. And there's still a good chance, just like in Japan, I'll find some other way to hurt myself. You got to address the root problem. This is nonsensical. And constantly saying guns are the problem is denying people the help that they need. And it's causing the violence to perpetuate and continue. These idiots are causing the problems, as evidenced by this stupid singular post. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I think that is such an important point, and I've got a little goofy gun grabbers thing in a second I'm going to hit. Okay. But I think when I hear that 75% of suicides thing, Dr. Button Pusher, hit me with that Biden math again. That's what I hear.
$1,400,000,000.
What are you talking about? Legitimately, this one gets me. When you sent this one over for the segment, this one gets me because they are trying to conflate a very serious topic, a very serious concern, to their point. So, and this is one of the things that is incredibly frustrating around gun controllers is they do this thing where they take something that's really bad and they try to contort it and they add context to bring it back to their point. And that's the suicide rate of what they're referring to. Of course it matters. To Tim's point.
Yeah, it absolutely matters, but address the problem if you want to stop it.
Address the problem. Right. And when trying to convey suicide rate to mass shootings, because really suicides are more prevalent at mass shootings. So therefore, if we stop the suicides, we would stop the shootings. That's a bit of a leap. Yeah. And when I say a bit of a leap, I mean like a lot of a leap.
That's a straight up mental gymnastic feat right there.
Right. It's just like the judges that we've seen are making stuff up to prove their point. This is something that should not be adjusted for their point, because if you're looking at, and this just gets my goat, man. If you're looking at the reason and the why, which is always the most important piece of what we do, the reason why they would put this post out is to counteract the prevailing understanding that suicide is half of their data points of gun violence.
Precisely. That's what this is all about, trying to cut off at the pass the argument that we often make. And it's a valid argument, but it cripples them because they know that, well, it's not truly an act of violence except towards yourself. So they're going to try to tie it into acts of violence against others.
Correct.
And again, all of this denies the assistance to the person seeking or needing help. They don't care
Exactly
about that
right.
person. This goes to my point earlier. They let these things happen. Worse, some would argue that they make these things happen. Not necessarily suicides, but just in general bad things, bad outcomes, right? And so to them, the suicide is a talking point that helps them get their agenda done. So they're not really all that interested in fixing the core problem. They just want to ban guns. That's all this is about. They don't care about you and what you're dealing with. They just want to take your gun away. But going back to Japan, I didn't point this out earlier, with the Japanese suicide rates being twice that of the United States, that's without firearms, folks. They kill themselves in ways that don't require firearms. And there's a suicide forest there where teens and people go every single day to do that.
Yeah.
And they've tried to shut it down. They've tried to do everything they can, and yet they're still struggling with it. So that it is a problem, and people need help. But dang, and curse these people like K-12 database that almost make light of the problem by proposing that it's the gun that is the problem because of the problems that people are dealing with. Yeah, that is so cruel and evil. It's just, screw these people, man. That's just awful.
Well said.
Anyway,
screw these people. Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's a good
with
point.
My phallic symbol,
with my phallic metal thing, with my 458 SOCOM. Well, now I get to do something from the goofy gun grabbers. Dr. Button Pusher. This is number 7, and this might be the silliest headline that I've ever seen. Florida mistress uses sugar daddy's gun in love triangle car shooting with baby inside. I don't even want to read the article. I just wanted to share that title. How many more clickbaity buzzword emotional response words can you possibly use? That looks like our propaganda board. That's what that looks like.
We have mistress, sugar daddy, love triangle, and
car shooting.
The actual event, the shooting, and then there's a baby inside, deputies say. So, mistress, sugar daddy, and love triangle are all important. And
for a shooting.
Yeah. This is journalism, folks, and this one comes to us from Fox.
Yeah, Fox Orlando.
Yep,
so good, so good.
Chasing the clicks.
And I think that wraps it. Though.
It does. I think we did a good
good
job. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed. Listen to me. I'm doing the Biden over here. It's my best impression I can do. I hope you enjoyed today's
$1,400,000,000,000.
Oh,
who gave this guy the buttons? We're gonna regret this.
We're gonna regret this. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll talk to you guys soon.